Alright boys, I'm finally back, man. I missed the grind of YouTube and I'm really excited for MLB The Show 22 coming out. You guys know I play college baseball and I have been grinding. It's heat of the season right now. Conference starts this Friday. I'll pop up my stats on the screen right now. We're having a really good start to the season for those who have been asking, but it's been really fun. And I've been loving baseball, but I'm really excited for the new season of MLB The Show to come out. Obviously, we're going to be grinding this as well. Now, today, all the way up to MLB The Show 22 coming in just a couple of weeks. A little bit less than 2 weeks, actually. So, we're going to be grinding, and I'm going to be talking about things that you guys should do day one of MLB The Show 22 to get a lot of stubs, to get collections done. We're going to start this series, and today, we are going to be talking about the 10 things that you need to do first when going into MLB The Show 22 Diamond Dynasty. Now, this is going to be a really high tier list. I'm going to be talking about kind of the best way to get collections done and a lot of things that you guys need to be doing ASAP once you get on the game, because at the beginning of the game, there is a lot of advantage to be taken care of. Everybody wants the best team possible, and honestly, I am going to be showing you guys some of the smarter routes to take. Whether you're a no money spent player or a money spent player, it doesn't matter. These tips apply to you, and we're going to be going over the best way to kind of get a God Squad so you can get on your ranks grind and get on an absolute tear going into 22, starting off the year. Now, before we get into this video, make sure you guys drop a like and a sub. I believe we are 5 subs away from 6K, so hit that sub button. We're going to be grinding, and let's get right into it. Alright boys, so the first of 10 tips whenever you guys are going into Diamond Dynasty is going to be careful on the market. Day one on the market, it is always really terrible. A lot of gold cards and a lot of diamond cards are even usually going for about 30 to 50,000 stubs off rip, because everybody wants the best card possible whenever the game comes out. Now, the one thing that I am going to say is if you are grinding collections, which is going to kind of get into my point number 2, is that you've got to go, usually I go for the big guys first. Now, a lot of guys will say, well, you can start with the golds and you can go for the collections. But whenever you're going for the collections, usually I'm one of those guys who likes to get the big one first. So the first week last year, I believe it was day 6, and I'm going to be talking about how to get stubs in another video day 1, so don't worry. You know I'm the stubs guy. I'm going to help you guys get a lot of stubs day 1, and it's going to be very obtainable to where if you're in my community and you're doing some of the stuff that I should say, there is no reason that you shouldn't be able to have Mike Trout by week 1. And yes, I said that right, by week 1. Mike Trout was obviously always the hardest one to get. Now, I don't know how they're doing overalls in MLB The Show 22. I saw some of it in the beta test, but the one thing that I am going to say is that I always go Angels first for collection. So this is kind of going into point number 2 is value collections and do not sell your cards unless they are duplicates. You are going to be wanting to grind everything for the Mickey Mantle or the Chipper Jones or whoever it ends up being next year. But this is always the best card in the game. I mean, Chipper Jones last year, 330 for me in 634 plate appearances. He was an absolute dog. I got a P5, obviously, because you use him pretty much all year. He is an animal. I love that card to death. Every Chipper card's always an amazing card. Even Alfonso at the beginning of the year wasn't bad. I struggled with him a little bit, 276, but David Ortiz was pretty good, 323 with big power. Like, these cards at the beginning of the year are just absolutely disgusting. Do not sell your cards. Make sure that you guys are holding on to your cards. That way you can get collections done ASAP. I know you're going to want to end up selling them so you can get these like 85 to 88s that come out in the game beginning, but unless they're a live series card, you really should not worry about them, especially whenever some of those live series cards are even better than some of the 88s that'll come out. I know that they will do the inning programs and stuff like that, but this goes into my third point is after you are doing and making sure you're not selling duplicates, going after these collections, and I will have a more in-depth video going over my strategy day 1 on how I'm going to get Trout in the first week and how I'm going to hopefully have the collections done in the first month of MLB The Show. I usually am really good at that. The one thing that I always do, and it's every single year, is I'm going to go into the programs. I know I haven't played the 11th inning that much, but I played 1 through 10 like an absolute ton. What I'm going to say here is that whenever you are looking at the first inning, the second inning, and the third inning bosses, Usually the first 3 inning of bosses, and this is I believe tip number 3 or 4, is that you need to not necessarily care about them. Now I remember last year it was Juan Pierre, I believe, was the first inning program boss. He was like an 88. Usually the highest overall they will get to about second inning, third inning is maybe like a 92, 93 overall card. Maybe there will be a 94 overall pitcher, but the one thing that I'm going to say is you guys need to be careful because those cards do not matter in a month. Now, if you want to end up grinding the inning, and then what I'm going to end up saying is that grind the inning, sell the boss, get your live series taken care of. Now, one thing that I was able to do last year is I believe it was this year, I sold one of the first inning or second inning bosses in like the first week to end up getting Mike Trout. That was the last one. And obviously Mike Trout is a way better player than any of that. I believe Trout at the time, at the beginning of the game, he usually goes for about 200,000 to 230,000 stubs. And then about a month and a half in, he ends up getting pushed up to like 400K, 500K. So you really want to take care of Trout whenever stubs are scarce. So you're going to be doing that, and you're going to be making sure that you can get some of these big guys. DeGrom is one that's going to go for a ton. Tatis is one that's going to go for a ton. And these live series cards are pretty much just as jacked as they were in this year's game as they will be in next year's game. So you got to keep in mind that these guys are going to be animals. No matter when you get them, they're going to be way better than the inning bosses, especially Trout and Tatis. Even Acuna and Vladdy, those guys are probably going to be better than any guy for the first at least 2 months of the game coming out until some of like the first Affindies come out or some really good BR Flawless rewards. But in my opinion, these 3 are going to be some of the better ones. Now, if you are a better player, one thing I'm going to say is you should be doing day 1, and I'm going to be doing it, is I'm going to be playing Battle Royale, going for flawless wins. Now, those are huge at the beginning of the year. Now, I understand a lot of guys struggle with that. Usually, Battle Royale at the beginning of the year is really amazing just because you get all those live series cards. Alright boys, for tip number 5, what we are going to be doing and what I'm going to be telling you guys to do is that the best ways to grind into MLB The Show 22 are going to be ranked seasons, Battle Royale, and Tops Now moments. Now, Tops Now moments are absolutely huge. They will be coming out as soon as the season starts. There's usually weekly guys. At the beginning of the year, that Tops Now Yerminator was absolutely disgusting. He was so good. So make sure that you guys are doing your Tops Now cards because these Tops Now cards at the beginning of the year are absolutely huge. Miguel Cabrera was, Joe Musgrove had a no-hitter card. A lot of these cards go for a ton, like 12K a pop. And whenever you're doing this and you're getting 2 players and you're grinding for about maybe 10 minutes of moments, then you're going to be getting about 30,000 subs. So make sure you do your moments. Moments are going to be absolutely huge in MLB The Show 22. The 6th tip that I'm going to be doing is going to be going for stubs. Now, going for the stubs in early game is usually really easy. Now, I'm going to be talking about this, but the big thing that you guys are going to end up doing is whenever you start a game is you are going to be flipping buy now, sell now. Now, if I'm going to link one of my stubs videos at the top right now, I usually go crazy for stubs at the beginning of the year. And basically, you're just going to sit here and on the MLB The Show companion app on your phone, and you are going to grind this. Absolutely grind this. Buy now, sell now, flip it over and over again. I'm going to go more in depth into this, but you're going to be able to make at least about 50 to 60,000 stubs an hour at the very beginning. Now, usually in the first couple of days when people are stub crazy, you can make up to like 120,000, 130,000 an hour. It gets crazy. One guy who always does this at the beginning of the year is Pitching Rebel. If you know who he is, he's usually a top MLB The Show player every year. He usually gets like 3 million stubs by the first week, and he'll just grind on the market. I'll tell you guys how to do that in a more explained video coming out in a couple of days. Tip number 7 is going to be events, man. I love events every single year. They're usually really good, and they're always free stubs. At the beginning of the year, they will come out with stuff like this type of events. Now, I know this is a forever program. I'm just going to kind of use this event as an example. Obviously, this is usually the end of the year, amazing one. But events always have great rewards. 250 stubs for 2 wins, headliner packs. This is all looking like regular type of event stuff. And usually they will have a bunch of big packs. You can see Space 1 packs, but usually this won't be a thing until they come out in the game. So probably about 3 months in, you'll see an event like this. But you'll be getting lots of packs along the ways, and you will be getting lots of players. Usually some of the players that aren't as good that you get at the beginning of the year are guys like John Schmaltz. This would be like a 20-win reward in an event. And Asdrubal Cabrera, he's a card that ended up being worth a lot of stubs because he was rare towards the end of the game and he was needed for a lot of those collections. And so this card was really, really good. He was also a pretty decent shortstop, switch hitting, and it was pretty good at the beginning of the year. A lot better than a lot of the live series guys. And so a lot of people liked him because he was one of the only good switch hitting shortstops in the game at the time. All of these cards end up going for a lot of stubs, and if you can grind the events, they make a ton for you. Tip number 8 is going to be Ballplayer. Now, Ballplayer, I don't know how the progression is going to work in MLB The Show 22 yet because they haven't ended up going over it. But usually, Road to the Show and Ballplayer are some of the best cards at the beginning of the game, something that you really want to end up taking care of. Now, I always have really good Ballplayer methods, and last year there were a ton of Ballplayer glitches that were really, really good. We were able to get some of these guys maxed out super, super fast. Harry Cox was an absolute dog for me. He was an animal. And so you're going to want to get your Ballplayer good as fast as possible. Get that loadout, get Spark Plug, whatever you end up liking in some of these equipment items, because your cap is going to be your best player until you get your collection done. And then he's still going to be a top 5 until about like 5 months down in the game. So your cap is always really important at the beginning of the year. He's an absolute dog, and you're going to need this guy to be an animal. I'm going to be going over in-depth methods on how to get this done ASAP whenever the game comes out. We just got to wait until it comes out so I can figure out what works in this year's game. And if it's the same as last year's game, then it's going to be pretty easy. Tip number 9 is going to be to never play March to October. March to October is one of the most weird game modes in the game, and it doesn't get you a lot of rewards. So if you're trying to end up grinding affinities for Diamond Dynasty and you're trying to get a certain cards, do it through Showdown. Do it through different ways, but do not do it through March to October. It's a giant waste of time. I usually do one a year just because it's kind of a fun thing that I like to do, but March to October, unless they completely revamp it and make it a lot better, it usually takes about 4 to 5 hours of actual game grinding to get one affinity player, when it would take about maybe an hour or two to end up getting it done through Showdown. So just stay away from March to October. It's not usually that good, and go through Diamond Dynasty and do Showdown. And tip number 10, I believe this is the end of the video, is tip number 10 for grinding into MLB The Show 22 is do not focus about your team too much in the first week. Usually what I'm doing the first week or two, I don't have a God Squad yet. I'm not one of those guys who drops $1,000 in the game like Kyle. Usually whenever I get onto the game and it's the first week or the second week, I pick budget beasts. Now, some of these guys that I would say were budget beasts for me last year are guys like Jimmy Rollins. Now, this guy could bunt cheese. As you can see, 63 ABs, 530 batting average. He could actually hit a little bit versus lefties. High-speed guys for shortstop and middle infield are animals. D. Gordon was another guy who was really good. I remember this Tops Now Cedric being an animal when he came out in April. Jesus Aguilar absolutely rakes. This is a BR God, 478. So just make sure that you guys don't have to have necessarily God Squad teams. Even some of these 84 cards like Hebert Ruiz will probably hit better than a lot of these live series cards. So you can get some of these Tops Now cards, put them in your lineup, and some of these gold guys, and you can still beat a bunch of chumps who have Mike Trout week 1. They're not that good. You'll be all right. Beginning of the year, just make sure that you have guys that have good swings and you like them. They're going to be a lot better than you actually end up thinking. And you can end up taking out some God Squads, going to World Series. You'll see me end up doing this in streams and in YouTube videos. But just do not worry about your team too much for week 1 or week 2. You'll get there, and you just gotta grind the first couple weeks. Now, boys, if you enjoyed this video ended up helping you guys out, make sure you guys drop a like and a sub. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. I love the support. We're going to be grinding again, so make sure you guys stay here. I'm going to be giving you guys in-depth tutorials, banger gameplays, and all sorts of fun stuff. So hit that like, hit that sub button. I'll talk to you boys later. We're back, and peace.